Hi, everyone. My name is Lorenzo. I'm with American Crafts, and we are in association with Sweet Sugar Bell. And I am here to introduce Hillary for you all and a little bit about her company. So a little bit about her. Cookies Are Everything was born in 2018 when Hillary discovered that combining her two favorite things, baking and art, was a match made in cookie heaven. Shortly after, she opened a cookie studio in LA where she created cookie confections for everyone, from local neighbors and small businesses to iconic brands and celebrities. Her desire to share the joy of baking and crafting grew into what is now the Cookie Studio LA, a place where cookie and craft lovers can gather in person or virtually, like we are doing today, to experience and celebrate cookie magic. Hillary is part of the American Crafts design team, and we have loved working with her. Today, Hillary is going to teach us how to decorate Valentine-themed cookies using items from the new Sweet Sugar Bell collection at Michael's. And you'll notice most things that she is using, you can still get there at Michael's. And if any of you have questions at any time, please put them in the chat, and I'll make sure Hillary knows what's going on so that she can answer those directly for you.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today, and we're going to be decorating 3 different cookie designs using the same heart-shaped cookie cutter. We're going to be doing each cookie one at a time and working our way through it. And as Lorenzo said, if you have any questions at all, just feel free to put them in the chat and he will ask them directly to me. So without further ado, I'm going to switch the screen to my desktop. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. Just wanted to make sure. So here are the 3 designs that we're going to be working on today. We have, and each of them uses their own techniques and tools. So first off, we have this ice cream cone heart with a little additional cookie that is acting as the cherry on our design. We have this sort of 80s inspired neon cheetah heart. And then we have this more lacy traditional Valentine shape. So I'm going to set this plate aside and we're going to start with our ice cream heart. I'm going to put that here in the corner. So hopefully you guys can see that while I'm working. There we go. So the first thing I am going to do is gather my icing for this and my other tools. So for this project, I'm going to be using ivory colored icing in a flood consistency and a thicker piping consistency, some extremely thick pink icing, and some red icing for our heart-shaped cherry. So I'm going to start out by showing you how I like to open the bag of icing. The first thing I'm going to do is give my icing a little bit of a knead and a squeeze and maybe even a little helicopter to kind of get rid of any air bubbles that might be in it. And then I'm going to go ahead and pinch the end of the bag into a triangle shape. The seam, you might, if you can notice, the seam of the bag is on top. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to cut off a little bit. Now, remember, you can always cut off more, but you can't put it back. So it's best to start with a small hole. So I'm going to get my blank cookie here. We're just going to dive right into this design. So I hold my piping bag with the knot in between my thumb and my forefinger. I wrap my hand around the bag gently. Sometimes it's helpful when you are decorating before you get started is to squeeze a little bit of icing out onto a paper towel. That eliminates any air bubbles and just kind of gives you a little bit of a practice. So once you feel comfortable, you're going to take the piping bag and place it onto the cookie, lift slightly, and then pull away. And I find this little turntable to be very helpful so that I can get at all sides of the cookie with ease. But if you don't have that, you can stop and then turn your cookie and then pick back up where you left off. Whoops, you know what? I just made a little bit of a mistake on my design. So you know what? We're gonna just wipe that right off. And that's the great thing about cookie canvases. You can just wipe something off if you don't like how it came out. So I realized that I'm trying to make an ice cream cone here. So I need to make the spaces for my little drips. So there's no rhyme or reason to this, just have fun with it. And I'm going to leave that upper portion of the heart empty so that I can put my ice cream there. So as you can see, my mistake is gone. Can't even notice that it was ever there. Now I'm going to go right in and flood this cookie. And I like to flood the shape, use and follow the actual shape around and around. Rather than try to color it in, I like to go round and around, working my way toward the center. I try not to leave any naked spots on the cookie. But if there is a little space where there's no icing, I go ahead and I add more icing.
Hillary, we have a question for you.
Yes.
What is the difference between flood icing and thicker icing? Is it just more of a particular ingredient to make it flood?
So the icing ingredients are the same, but the amount of water in the icing is different. So if you have a flood icing, as you can see, as I did this, it sort of settled into place and smoothed itself out. So that's a flood icing. A piping consistency is going to be where when you pipe the icing out onto the cookie, and you're going to see this in the next step, it doesn't move, it doesn't spread, and it just stays put. So I've gone ahead and I flooded the cookie, and if you don't think that it's smooth enough, you can pick up your cookie, put it in the palm of your hand, and give the bottom of your hand a little gentle tap tap, and maybe even a little shake, and that'll smooth your icing. So I'm going to actually go ahead and set this aside. And if I were just making one of these, I would want to let this dry for a good 15 minutes before I moved on to the next step. But with the magic of video, I have one ready for the next step here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that out.
We have one other question for you, if you don't mind sharing.
I don't mind at all.
This is a little little off topic, but where did you get your awesome nail art from?
Oh, that's very sweet. I wanted to match my cookie set today. And so I just have a person that I go to here in Los Angeles who did that for me. But thank you so much for the compliment. I like to be on theme. So back to our cookie. Now, as you can see, I have another tube of icing that is also ivory in color, but this time it's piping consistency. So it's much thicker. So I'm actually not going to give this a knead and a shake because I don't want to agitate it, but I am going to seam side up, pinch the end, create that little triangle, and cut off the tip of the bag. Now I'm going to be using this piping consistency to make the cone effect. And before I do that, I want to just squirt a little bit out onto this paper towel to make sure that I like the thickness of my cut. And I am happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to work from one side of the cookie to the other. I'm going to set my bag down and I'm going to lift up and pull. Now, when you're doing something like this with a thicker icing, want to make sure that you keep squeezing the entire time, a consistent squeeze, so that your thread doesn't break off. And I'm just going to go ahead and add these lines. One direction. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn my cookie. I'm going to go ahead and add those lines the other direction. And the whole time that I'm piping, I am doing a consistent squeeze on the bag. And there we go. So now we have our waffle cone, and it's looking pretty good, but we need our ice cream. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set this one aside. Now, if you were just making one or you're making a lot of these, what you could do is you could get all the steps done and then set them aside until they're ready and move on to the next step. I would definitely want to give this a 5 or 10 minutes before I moved on to the next step. I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to grab my next item, which is actually going to be this little cherry heart. We want to go ahead and flood this cherry so that it is ready for the next step or at the end. So,
Hey,
oh,
Hillary,
yes.
for some people who have joined a little later, could you repeat what kind of icing you're using?
Yes, so I'm using royal icing, and that is a mixture of powdered sugar, water, meringue powder, and food coloring. So I'm going to go ahead and take some red, and I'm going to completely outline and flood this little heart, which I'm going to be using as a cherry. I like sometimes to do a smaller cookie. I just think it adds a nice little bit of dimension. And this particular heart cutter is the mini version of the larger shape that we're working with today. So it's very convenient. So now we have our little cherry, and I'm going to go ahead and just give that a little shake and a little tap to settle my icing. And then I'm going to set that aside. And it's going to be one of the very last things that we do on this design. So now I'm going to grab my waffle cone, and I'm going to add the ice cream. So the ice cream is made out of very thick pink icing. I'm going to be decorating it with some sprinkles today, and I want to have those sprinkles close at hand so I can get them into the design before it starts to set. So for this particular design, the icing needs to come out of the bag very thick. And so I'm actually going to cut off quite a lot of the tip of the bag, and to allow it to come out in a pretty big way. And I am going to just go ahead and fill the empty spaces with this pink icing. And if you can see, it's quite thick. And I want it to give it that sort of ice cream effect. So I'm going to, as I add it, I'm sort of swirling the tip of the bag around in the icing to give it that sort of scoop of ice cream effect. And you can kind of do this as much or as little as you want, depending on how humid it is where you are. If you agitate the icing too much, it can start to settle out and get shiny. So I don't want to mess with it too much, but as you can see, it sort of has that nice thick ice cream feel to it. And so now, before the ice cream can dry, I'm going to go ahead and take my cherry, and I'm going to insert it directly into the icing. And there we go. I'll just pop that.
Another question for you.
Ah,
Do you ever flavor your icing, and would extras affect the royal icing consistency?
Oh, okay, that's a great question. So my icing is vanilla. I almost always use vanilla flavored icing. And it does not affect the consistency. But if you're using an extract that you don't want to use extracts with oil in them because that will affect the setup of your icing. So just want to make sure that whatever you're using is not oil based. So before my ice cream can set up, I'm going to go ahead and just embellish with some sprinkles. So I have these cute little sprinkles here, and they are also at Michael's, and it's a little sprinkle mix called Loved. And I liked it because it had some of these little hearts in it. And so first I like to put them in strategically. Some people like to just drop them on. It's up to you. Maybe you want to do a lot, maybe you want to do a little. I have these nonpareils here that are pearly. You can see that it's starting to set up, and so the sprinkles are kind of rolling away. So you always kind of want to work a little bit quick with royal icing to get your embellishments in. And then I have a few other sprinkles here, and I just like to, add a few here and there. And like I said, this is really up to your discretion of what you think looks best. Maybe you want to do a lot or a little. But as you can see, this is a pretty doable design that is for all ages and levels, and you end up with something that I think it looks extra special and even a little bit difficult, which is always a lot, a little wow factor. So that is our ice cream cone heart.
I have
Maybe,
another question for you.
yeah,
Is
absolutely.
is the meringue powder in the icing a replacement for egg whites?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because it is pasteurized, and when you are making cookies for people, it's a nice idea to use egg whites. There's a bit of a risk there. And so I like to use the meringue powder because it is pasteurized. So now we got our ice cream heart is all ready. Some little fun sayings, you're the coolest, or I melt with you. Those are some fun little things to go with it. So the next cookie that we're going to work on is this sort of more traditional Valentine, and it has a lot going on, or so it looks, but it's very, very doable as well. I am using here the Sweet Sugar Bell parchment papers, and they are a patterned embossed piece of parchment paper that leaves a beautiful design in your royal icing. So there is some patience required with this design because it takes a little while to dry, but it's really a fun technique, and it looks very magical. And piping flowers can be fairly difficult, but instead of piping the flowers today, we're going to be using these royal icing pieces, which is so fun, and it does add an extra level to your cookie designs. So we're going to be using those. So in order to get this fun design, we need to start out with our naked cookie, and here it is. We are going to flood this cookie completely with some pink icing, and I'm going to do as I have been, which is seam side up, flatten the tip into the triangle, and cut off the tip of the bag. Gonna test that out on a paper towel always when I get started. And this time I'm going to flood the entire cookie pink. Now I am leaving a little bit of room around the edge of the cookie because when I apply the parchment paper, it's going to cause the icing to spread out a little bit. and I don't want it to run over the side. So that's just a helpful little hint when you're using these papers. The fun thing about these papers is that they can be used multiple times. So, you know, repeatedly can use them over and over again, and you can use them both directions. So you can get an embossed appearance or a debossed appearance. So I'm going ahead and I'm flooding this whole cookie, and as you can see, I'm following the shape of the heart, and I'm going around and around, working my way toward the center, trying not to leave empty spaces, but if I have any, I do use icing to fill them in. One of the things that I see the most when people are beginning is that they don't use enough icing. And believe it or not, a cookie really only has about 1 ounce of icing on it total. So you're not going to overdo it. And I say definitely err on the side of what you think is too much. And I think it'll be the perfect amount. So I'm just getting here toward the center and filling it in.
Hey, Hillary, how far in advance can you make these cookies?
So the great thing about these cookies is you can make them quite a bit in advance because they freeze really, really well. So what I like to do if I want to make some cookies ahead is I'll make them and then package them and then pop them in the freezer. So when you take them out of the freezer, they taste like you just baked them, which is so nice. So as you can see, I'm giving my cookie a little bit of a tap and a little bit of a shake, and I'm letting the icing settle down. I'm using my scribe tool for any areas of the cookie that I feel needed a little bit of extra help. And it is a warm day here, so it's setting up pretty quick. So now I'm going to take my parchment paper and I'm going to slice or use a scissor to cut off a section of the paper. And I wanted to do a band. So I'm going to find the section of the paper that I like. And I like this one with the large rose in the center. So I'm just cutting the piece that I want. And I'm just gonna straighten that out a little bit. There we go. So now I'm going to take this parchment and I want the rose to feel as though it's raised off the cookie. So I'm going to do the raised side facing up. I'm going to set it down in the center. You know what? I want that to be just a bit skinnier. That's the great thing about these is you can just make it your own. So there we go. I wanted it a little skinnier. So I'm going to set it down on the cookie, starting on one side, and I'm going to gently tap it on to the cookie. And I'm working my way across using a light touch. You can also use the back of your scribe. And I'm just doing a very light touch on this. Now, as I mentioned, there is some time with these. In order to be successful, you really need the cookie and the icing to be 100% dry. So depending on how you dry your cookies, like if you air dry them, you may have to wait until the next day. So that's something to consider. The other option is you can place your cookies in front of a fan or in a food dehydrator, and that will speed the process. So as you can see, I've gotten the parchment down on the cookie and I have tapped out all the air bubbles and made sure that the icing has filled all of the raised areas. So I'm going to set this aside and we're just going to pretend that it's magically been 24 hours. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my cookie that's all ready. So here I have the parchment paper is on the cookie. It's totally dry. And I'm going to just gently pull it away from the icing. And some people find this noise that it makes very satisfying. And as you can see, I have my design in the cookie. And I also have, my parchment is still in great shape and I can use that again. So I made 2 of these. I thought you might want to see that twice. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pull it away. You can see, and I have my strip. It's all ready to be used again if I desire. So now we have the next step of our cookie, which is to add this fun little lace area. So how I'm going to go ahead and do that is I've got a food safe brush and a tiniest bit of water just to dampen the brush. Very little water is necessary. And then I'm going to take some white icing. And I'm going to make some little scallops on the cookie. And this isn't optional, but it just seemed like a fun little addition. And I'm gonna go ahead and take my brush, which is rolling away. I'm gonna take my brush, I'm gonna wipe it off on the paper towel so that it's damp, but not super wet. And I'm just gonna go ahead and manipulate the icing to give it that little kind of lacy look. And you can do a couple different layers of this to kind of really get it to look as thick and as lacy as you like.
Now, Hillary, could you enlighten us with letting us know any tips or techniques to try to get rid of bubbles in royal icing?
So the bubbles in royal icing is definitely going to happen, but what you can do is, when the icing is, in the bowl, before you go ahead and put it in the bags, you can take the bowl and tap it on your counter, and that'll pop some of the bubbles. They rise to the surface, and then you take a spatula and you stir it, and that'll pop them. And then the other thing you can do is you can take your bag before you use it and give it a spin. And this sort of centrifugal force breaks the bubbles in the bags. And that's a very helpful way. I do urge you to always be sure that you have not already cut open the bag before you do this. I speak from personal experience. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush and I'm just going to add a little more icing here. Just wanted to thicken that up a little bit. So I'm just adding a little bit more, and I'll use my brush to manipulate that design and just kind of give it that sort of doily appearance. And you can use really thick icing to do this too. And then you really get like a lace feel. So now we have our lace and our embossed roses. And now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to add the floral element. So I have here the royal icing pieces that I mentioned to you before. So I have some of those, and then I have some green, very thick icing with a leaf tip on top. And just want to make sure that I can get that to come out of the tip. So
Hillary, we have a question about the paintbrushes.
uh-huh.
Can you use regular paintbrushes as long as they are new?
Yeah, you can. You know, the brushes are, but these brushes are the Sweet Sugar Belle made specifically for this, but sometimes I do use just a simple paintbrush that's never been used for anything else. And they're also great for if you're using luster dusts or glitter to kind of wipe away the excess glitter and dust. So now what I have here is my green with the piping tip on it. And then I also have my royal icing pieces. I'm going to use the same color that I used to ice the cookie to add the pieces. And that way, if any sneaks out, we won't notice it. So I'm going to go ahead and take my royal icing piece and I'm going to add some icing to the bottom of it. And I'm going to place it onto my cookie. And then I'm going to add my little flower here just next to it. And like I said, these just add another element to your cookie and they're just so cute. They're, and if you don't know how to pipe flowers, it's just a nice way, or if you're in a hurry, or you don't want to make a lot of colors of icing, just a great way to embellish your designs. So now we have our flowers on there and we could just leave it as it is if we wanted, or we can add some leaves. So I have this piping tip here and I always think of it like an alligator. So you want to hold it with the V facing yourself. You're going to hold it at a 45-degree angle, and then you're going to go ahead and squeeze it and then a little wiggle, and that creates your leaf shape. And you can just add as many of these as you like. And I can go ahead and just add a few, and maybe just one little one over here. There we go. So there we have it. So we have our third design, and this is one where you could leave it as is, or maybe if you wanted to, you could write your loved one's name there, or whatever you would like. So go. There is number 2. So now we're going to be working on our third cookie design now, which is the cheetah design. And this one is really, you get a lot of bang for your buck, as they say with this one. It's super fun. And we're going to be using the airbrush tool for this. So I'm going to start out with my naked cookie and my white icing. And then I'm just going to see, we have our tool here, airbrush tool. And we're going to be using black and pink. And we are going to be using this stencil. So we are just getting all of our tools here in line. And then I'm also going to be using a Silkscreen for this. And you can use any Silkscreen as long as it hasn't been used for any other mediums. And in this instance, it's never been used for anything other than food. So,
Hey, Hillary, real
yes.
quick. There was a question I was asking about before you got too far into this cookie. There was a question asking you about the flower tip. I
Yes.
put a link in the chat, but I want to make sure I give them the correct one. Is there a particular number for that tip?
Mine has worn off, but it's the Wilton leaf tip. And there's multiple sizes for it, but it's literally called leaf tip.
Yeah,
Awesome.
we also have one other question for you.
Okay.
Where or how do you store royal icing once it's mixed and in your bags, and how long can they be stored for?
That is a great question. So my royal icing doesn't stick around very long because I make a lot of cookies. However, sometimes I want to make it a little bit ahead. So what I like to do is once I've mixed it in the bowl, I will take an airtight container, fill that with my royal icing, and then I'll take some plastic wrap and lay that directly over the top of the icing. It's really important that the plastic wrap be touching the icing to prevent air from reaching it, and that keeps it moist until you're ready to use it. And you can keep it for quite a long time. If you want to freeze it, I'd say maybe about a month or so. Otherwise, sometimes the consistency can get a little bit funny. So the next cookie that we're going to be doing is going to be flooded white. So I had already opened the white for our last design. And I'm going to go ahead and flood this as I did the previous designs, where I'm going to outline the entire shape. I'm gonna go ahead and flood that. The other thing is if you're using, if your royal icing is already mixed and it's in the bag and you're done with the project, don't throw it away. It will last quite a long time in the bag. And you can just remix it or mix it with other colors to get new colors, and just pop it in the freezer until you're ready for your next project. Because it is still good. And if you already have your supplies on hand, you're more likely to want to make more treats. So as you see, I'm going around and around, following the shape to the center of the cookie. And I'm going to go back in and fill those areas I missed with more icing.
So Hillary, when you freeze the icing, someone's asking how long do you wait for it to thaw from freezing?
So that is so great. It thaws out in just a few minutes. It's especially with the warmth of your hand. So you can pull it out and use it within, I would say 10 minutes or less, depending on how warm of a day it is. I will say that if you're using it to mix new colors, you might want to let it thaw a little longer than that because it can be deceiving as to how thick or thin it is if it's still partially frozen. So now we have this flooded cookie. Now, when you're airbrushing cookies, it's really important for the surface of the cookie to be as flat as possible. So again, I would urge you to give it a little time to settle down, give it a tap, or a little shake in your hand. And then you're gonna wanna let that dry. And because we are applying pressure to the cookie by putting a stencil upon it, you really need it to be quite dry. And I would say that if you are like me and you like to get right to it, at least wait a half an hour, but even a few hours would be ideal if you're going to airbrush, unless you have a fan or a food dehydrator. So when I airbrush cookies, I like to cover my surface area with something to protect it. So in this case, I have a paper towel. And so I'm going to go ahead and put my cookie onto this paper towel to protect my surface area. And then I'm going to get my airbrush tool, and we are going to start with the pink. So this tool is so fun. It's a food safe marker, and I'm going to insert that into the tool and pretty tight. And so now it is ready to go. Now I'm going to take my stencil and I'm going to lay it directly over my dry cookie. And I'm going to take the Silkscreen and lay it down. So now I've got this. Now I want to do a little bit of a test for you just to show you. It does come out pretty quick. So always a good idea to test before you get started. So I press the button and I can just test it out. So now, just help me understand the direction of the spray and what it is that I'm working with. Now I'm going to, starting at the bottom of the cookie, just below it, I'm going to press the button and I'm going to go ahead and use my tool all the way up to the top. And then I'm going to do another pass all the way down. I just love this. So magical. Okay, so now I'm going to grab the Silkscreen and the stencil at the same time, and I'm going to lift up and I'm going to lift away. And we have this really fun cheetah design. Now, if you wanted to, you could stop right there, but I don't want to stop right there. I want to add another layer. So because I didn't want to clean my Silkscreen in between, I used the lighter color first. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this black food safe marker and I'm going to insert it directly into the airbrush tool. No, I don't even need to clean anything. I'm gonna pop that in there. I'm going to take my stencil and I'm gonna lay it back on. Now I wanna lay it on here slightly offset from what I had already done because I want it to have a little bit of, I wanna see it's part of the pink and I wanna see part of the black. So I'm gonna go ahead and lay it off center. And I'm going to put my silk screen right back on it. And again, I'm gonna start at the bottom, just off of the cookie to kind of get my momentum going. And then I'm going to go over the entire cookie. And then I am going to work my way back down, giving it another pass. And if I want it to be dark, I decided I'm gonna give it a third pass. Now I'm going to be careful that I hold both the stencil and the silk screen, and I'm going to lift straight up and over. Now, the reason I always say straight up and over is so that I don't smear the work that I've just done. So here's our cookie, and we have that nice sort of almost 3D effect where we have the pink and the black. Such a great way to use this tool and get multiple effects from it. So I'm going to move my paper towel away, and we could stop here because it looks pretty cute, but I think we're going to add one more element to it, and that is a piped outline around the side. So now I do have this very thick hot pink icing to kind of go with our theme. And this is where I decided I was going to have, as somebody mentioned, the nail art that matched. Like I said, I do love a theme. And I'm going to go ahead and cut off the tip of the pink, keeping the seam side up, flattening the tip. Don't want to cut off too much because I do want this to be like a, a nice thin outline. And I'm going to take my paper towel and squeeze some out on the paper towel to make sure that I like the opening. And I do, so I can set that aside and get started. So I'm going to go ahead. I like to start at the bottom, and I'm going to squeezing continuously the entire time and using my opposite hand to guide the hand with the bag. Go ahead and give this heart an outline.
And Hillary, you have about 15 minutes left.
Hey. So that is our airbrushed cookie. And again, you could write something on this or add some more. It's pretty fun as it is. And there are no shortage of fun airbrushed designs that you can do. So I have another one here, which we can airbrush, or I also wanted to show you guys this other design that I did where I had done the entire heart with the parchment paper. So in this instance, I did the entire shape, and then I went ahead and I embellished with lots of different royal icing pieces, which is super fun to do. So I have this extra heart here, and I'm going to go ahead and create those scallops, but instead of the white, I'm going to use the hot pink. I'm going to go ahead. This is also a really fun technique if you're trying to make beach cookies, beach waves. And I'm going to go ahead and wet my brush, wiping off the excess water. And I'm going to go ahead and create that lacy look. And this is a thicker icing.
Another person would like to know, do you have any tips for shipping decorated cookies?
That is a great question because I know family and friends always want the cookies to be sent to them. So yes, when you're shipping cookies, it's really important to make sure that they cannot move inside of the packaging. So what you're going to want to do is package the cookie as you would. Like for example, I package my cookies like this in a cellophane bag, and then you're going to want to insert it into maybe a little bubble wrap, make your own little bubble wrap envelope. And then make sure that inside the packaging that they're in, that when you give the package a little bit of a shake, you don't hear any sound. A lot of fluff, a lot of crumpled up paper around or tissue paper will be really helpful in ensuring that your baked goods get where they're going. Though I always caution it is a cookie, so no guarantees. So anyway, gonna go ahead and add a few more royal icing pieces. And I'm also going to, on this one, I thought that it might be fun to add some layers. And so maybe I'll add some white, and then we'll make that lacy. And again, a little bit of water. And these parchment papers come in so many different designs and textures, and it's just super fun to use with so many different occasions. I don't know how this is turning out, but we're just winging it a little bit with that. So, and then what I also have here, another ice cream cone. So I can just show you guys again that technique with the really thick icing. So again, we just no rhyme or reason, just have fun with it. Another really fun thing to do with a cookie like this is to add some brown icing like chocolate sauce. And I'm gonna go ahead and add my little cherry that we made earlier. So as you can see, it's ready to be used. And now I will add pretty quick my sprinkles. And as you can see, this is very thick icing, and that's why the sprinkles don't want to stay. So you might need to give it a tap with your tools. Whoops, sometimes the sprinkles just have a mind of their own.
Now, Hillary, out of these methods that you've shown us, which is your favorite?
The ice cream is my favorite. I love it. I love them all actually. I love the ice cream. I love the cheetah heart. I'll definitely be making all of these for my Valentine cookies this year. They're all really doable and look very magical when they're completed. They have a lot of texture and depth, and I think that if you make these for your friends and loved ones, there's a real wow factor with them. So I always like that. And with this really thick icing, you can actually even use your fingers. I mean, assuming it's for yourself or your family to kind of sculpt it, or your tool. The back side of the tool is great for that as well. So those are our fun cookie designs. I'm gonna just lay them out here so you guys can see all of them. And there we go. There we are. 3 different designs using the same cutter.
Well, Hillary, before you end, I guess I can ask the group, is there any other questions that you'd like to ask Hillary before we wrap up?
Hey, Hillary, do you want to go back to your front-facing camera?
Oh, yeah, sure, no problem.
Well, I have a question here for you. What's your favorite tip or technique for new cookie decorators?
You know what? My favorite tip for new cookie decorators is just stick with it. It takes practice, but if you just keep practicing, it will happen. Just don't give up. Practice, practice, practice. That's my I think is the most important technique with it. And I really appreciate you all being here, and I hope that you have enjoyed these trio of hearts, and that you'll be making them for your friends and loved ones this Valentine's Day. And if you do, we would love it if you shared it at #LearnWithMichaels or #MakeItWithMichaels. And if you have any more questions for me, you can find me at Cookies Are Everything or the Cookie Studio LA. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
We actually have two more questions for you if you're okay answering them quick.
I'm happy to answer all the questions.
One is, how do you make the cookie, so the leopard cookie? Is it possible to make it without the airbrush tool?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it is possible to make it without the airbrush tool, but you do need the stencil. So if you wanted to take the stencil and lay it over the cookie and then use a spatula to wipe some thicker consistency icing over it, when you lift it away, you'll get that nice texture design and it will be raised. So it does take a little bit of practice, but it's very doable.
And then I think the final question we have is, oh wait, we have two more. First one, do you have any specific measurements for the royal icing?
Oh, this like the recipe?
That's what I'm guessing.
Yes. You know what? I think that we have a Lorenzo. I think I have a link that you have that does provide my recipe.
I will.
That's that video but I'm also happy if anybody wants to send me a message via social media, I'm happy to share.
And then the last thing is, did you make the roses?
So in this case, I did not make the roses. They're from Michaels, and they come in these little packages, and they come in every color and lots of different designs. They come in and it's just so nice for ease of use to, you could just pop them right on your cookies. So I did not.
Hey, Hillary, just know that you can send us your recipe so that those who may watch the video after the fact, that we can have the recipe within the description, a link for it in the description of the YouTube channel so that they can get that from there as well.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. I'll do that today. I'll send the recipe and any other information that you would all like to have.
I think that's it for the questions. So
Okay, well, again, thank you all so much for coming and joining us for this really fun afternoon of cookie decorating. And the only thing I love more than decorating cookies is decorating cookies with other people. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you have a fabulous rest of your day.